Danger, Victorians told to prepare for the worst again.
We face unprecedented risk to life and property in coming days.
Evacuations with entire towns in the line of fire as dozens remain missing in East Gippsland. Developing now, fleeing the fire zone. Evacuees on the first Navy ship out of Malakuta to finally arrive to safety today.
Also this morning, devastation on Kangaroo Island. Workers flee to underground bunkers as a resort goes up in flames. This morning, the entire island under threats.
And miracle survival. The 92-year-old war veteran, feared loss to the fires, somehow escapes after losing everything. On Weekend Sunrise this Saturday, the 4th of January, 2020.
This is Weekend Sunrise on 7, with Matt live in the fire zone and Monique and Basil.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome to a special edition of Weekend Sunrise on this day of unprecedented bushfire threats. In the past half hour, we've seen the first evacuees arrive on Melbourne's Mornington Peninsula after being rescued by the Navy from fire-devastated Malakuta in Victoria's far east.
And this morning, there are fears more communities will come under a similar threat today. Extreme heat, ultra-low humidity and strong winds. The worst possible conditions. They've given emergency authorities grave fears for the day ahead in both Victoria and in New South Wales.
A lot of nervous people today, and Matt is in the evacuation zone at Moruya on the New South Wales south coast. Matty, what's happening there where you are at the moment?
Good morning. A state of emergency is in place here in New South Wales as we've seen tens of thousands of people flee this coast amid fears that authorities simply cannot protect them as a 200,000 hectare fire burns down into some of these coastal communities. We heard a very short time ago from the New South Wales Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, and the New South Wales Fire Service Commissioner, Shane Fitzsimmons, who have updated the numbers. More than 100 fires are burning. 60 of those are uncontained fires in New South Wales. We have more firefighting personnel out in the field than we have ever seen before in this state. 3,000 personnel across New South Wales, 31 strike teams. They are doing their best to protect many homes across this state. 449 homes have been lost since New Year's Eve alone. 8 people have died in New South Wales. That is since New Year's Eve. 2 people have died in Victoria, where 50 fires are burning, many of those out of control, and alarmingly 28 people in Victoria still remain unaccounted for. The Army, the Navy I should say, is assisting with mass evacuations there in Victoria, in Malakuta, and the Navy is also on standby here in New South Wales to assist any communities who are likely cut off with power interruptions and also road closures expected today as these fires really bear down on some of these isolated communities. We have a team of reporters across each of the fire zones in New South Wales and also in Victoria. Robert Ovadia is at Moruya at the evacuation centre there, where a lot of people are being housed, they are being fed. Rob, how are people holding up?
They're in pretty good spirits, Matt, and I think they're pretty introspective about what's about to happen. I mean, there are predictions and there is reality, and unfortunately, I think most people are thinking the reality is going to feed from those predictions today, that there will be houses lost, that there will be widespread damage. Specifically here in Moruya, there's a population of 4,000. Behind me, I think there's probably roughly half the township, maybe a little bit less. It's difficult to know precisely how many are tourists and how many are actually residents, but clearly they are heeding the advice. They've cleared whatever vegetation and fuel away they can from their homes, and they're staying here. This is the basketball stadium just behind me. Equally in townships just to the north from here, and in Browley, Malua Bay, and all the way up to Batehaven and Batemans Bay, people are preparing there, and towards the south also in Narooma. So there is a certain amount of luck, and that can be good luck or bad luck today. Much of that will depend on the winds. They're northwesterly. They're anticipated to be northwesterly and building steadily throughout the day. The peak temperature here is expected to be 39 degrees at roughly 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Thank you, Rob. 7 News correspondent Tim Lester is at Narooma, and Tim, the evacuation centre there, well, it's filling up too.
It is. There's been a steady stream here, Matt, of people coming in this morning. Some no doubt intend to dig in here for the day because it's a pretty safe spot as spots go around Narooma today. Others coming in to be briefed, and they've been told by and large there is still an expectation fire at some stage today will cross the Princes Highway, and that's a pretty ominous warning. The Badger Forest Road fire sits to the west of Narooma, Bermagui and other coastal villages. It's the one that took out many homes in Cobargo and that area earlier in the week, and it's burned 200,000 hectares. Saturday's condition, the fear north-northwest winds will drive it back in on Narooma and other towns. The prediction maps, particularly ominous, say that by late today that fire could have burned all the way to the coastline. Matt?
Yeah, a lot in the hands of the weather gods. Thank you very much, Tim. Jeff Parry is at the Bateman's Bay Evacuation Centre for us. Jeff, I spent a bit of time at Bateman's Bay. There was a lot of fear there a couple of days ago. How are people holding up now?
Well, Matt, that fear is still here, and it's probably the biggest evacuation centre on the New South Wales coast. Hundreds of people here. It's a caravan park, if you like. People have brought their caravans down, their camper vans. They're staying in tents. It's difficult to tell how many people are here. Not everyone has registered. Some people are actually at the registration centre or the evacuation centre sleeping on camp beds and swags and anything they can find, but they're worried. A lot of these people are local people. They're worried because of that threat of ember attack, that their homes won't be safe, so they've come here. They've taken some comfort in the fact that there are a lot of people here. They can be protected. At least they've got the ocean at their back, so if it all turns bad, they can head there. But it's just really a day that no one had foreseen, and no one really can understand and expect to know how this day will turn out. Of course, the temperatures are going to spike here, as they will up and down the coast into the 40 degrees. I spoke to a woman from Browley who's come up here this morning. She expects that this afternoon or tomorrow her house won't be there. So people are very philosophical, but they're also, I guess, realistic about what the outcome of today could be, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Stay safe there. It's a really eerie place with all this smoke moving in around us. David Boywood is in Victoria for us, in the eastern Victorian town of Bruthen. David, I think it gives people a sense of just how widespread this damage is when you consider the fact that we have 2 confirmed deaths, but 28 people still missing. That is how hard it is for the crews to get into these areas and confirm exactly who is still alive.
Yeah, that is the major problem for crews at the moment. Still 28 people missing, dozens right across this region. It is a major worry at this time. Of course, many people have been cut off from those telecommunications, so even if they are okay, they haven't been able to tell their friends and family. So look, slowly those telecommunications have been coming back online, and hopefully those people can raise the alerts there that they are okay. But yeah, as you say, we are here in Bruthen, where everyone is just keeping a very close eye on that predicted wind change later today. It's starting to heat up, but the good news at the moment is it's still pretty still here at the moment, so fingers crossed it does stay that way. But as you say, it has been a devastating few days here in Gippsland. The Emergency Services Commissioner, Andrew Crisp, updated the situation a short time ago.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
Thank you very much, David, and our thoughts with all of those families
what can you
there
do?
in Victoria. Tom Chadwick is at Lake's entrance for us this morning. Tom, what's the situation like there?
Well, Matt, it's a ghost town. Lake's Entrance is usually a thriving tourist destination at this time of year, where at any one point 5,000 people could be in the town centre, but at the moment it is extremely vacant. It is eerie, it is desolate, and it is extremely smoky. But Matt, I've got some breaking news. There's a town called Nowanal, which is about 15 minutes to the right of me as a drive. We've just been told at 8:36 this morning it has been upgraded, the fire there, to an emergency warning. Last night we could get into the town. It was a watch and act, but at the moment it is an emergency warning, and just in the last half an hour or so we could feel the smoke certainly coming across to the water. So there are growing tensions here at Lake's Entrance. Matt?
Thank you, Tom. Blake Johnson is at Bright in northeastern Victoria for us, where a disaster declaration has been issued there, Blake.
Matt, that declaration was invented, so to speak, after the 2009 Black Saturday bushfires. What it means is that authorities have more power to force people to evacuate towns and also to take people's property to either fight fires or create some sort of a community centre. It means that most people in Brighton have left the town. Some 15,000 got out on Thursday, tourists and locals. The town's a bit of a ghost town at the moment. Overnight, we've learnt that machinery has been going around in a giant ring around Bright trying to clear some land because there's a couple of fires that are burning not too far away from this town, which is surrounded by hills, and with this forecast today of 43 and a wind change coming later today, could mean the town is under threat later tonight.
A frightening proposition. Thank you, Blake. Casey Trelaw is at Kangaroo Island for us. And Casey, just some of the pictures coming out of Kangaroo Island, really frightening stuff. How are the crews holding up? How many property losses are we expecting?
Yeah, look, that's right. The sudden wind changes forced chaos across the island, with the bushfire now having destroyed a quarter of its landmass. That's approximately 140,000 hectares. Now, we can confirm the Southern Ocean Lodge has suffered significant damage in this blaze, where senior staff were forced to take shelter in underground bunkers. The CFS says due to the magnitude of this bushfire, the destruction of many buildings and properties will be realised this morning. For much of the night, the whole of Kangaroo Island was under threat, with the entire western half under an emergency warning message after multiple fires joined up to create one mega fire. It forced thousands of residents and tourists to flee to populated sites across Kingscote and Penashore. Additional firefighters flew in last night, and it appears they were able to get the upper hand, with it being downgraded to a watch and act message. Now, we've just heard the cruise ship Vasco da Gama that's anchored off Kangaroo Island has just cancelled its plans to come ashore, but is waiting offshore in case it's needed for evacuations.
Thank you very much, Casey, and to our team of reporters across the fire zones. We'll check in for updates throughout the morning. Really something quite historic unfolding here, though, on the New South Wales south coast. The queue of caravans and tents you can see behind me. Residents who have decided it is not safe to be at home. They are taking refuge along the Moruya River. It is a frightening scenario. Let's go now to Sally with the rest of today's news.
Good morning. While the country's southeast is in the grip of an unprecedented fire emergency, the nation's west is also being hit hard. A major stretch of road remains shut to traffic after a fire broke out at Baladonia in southern WA. More than 400 kilometres of the air highway across the Nullarbor is closed and is likely to remain shut for days. It's expected to cost millions in freight loss. Food shortages are already being felt in Perth. Anger is growing over the response to this national bushfire crisis. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has faced fury from locals while visiting the bushfire-ravaged town of Cobargo. He says he doesn't take the anger personally and understands that people have suffered and are hurting. In New South Wales, emergency services